right, and welcome back to another live. Yeah, I'm gonna always say live now. Live episode of the Saturday Sit Down. I am T Harris at When the Needle Drops,
and I'm QG at Nerdy Little Bubba.
All right, so again, as always, our mission on the Saturday Sit Down is to share our love for music in a way that is accessible and enjoyable for everyone, from the novice to the knowledgeable, with our goal of never being loud and wrong. Because let's be real. It's a lot of loud and wrong music podcasts out here who just saying things just to get a reaction out of folks. But we always strive to never be loud and wrong, and let the church say amen.
Amen to that.
Amen. Amen. So we got a special guest on with us today. A good friend of ours, good brother, good frat brother, someone we talk about music and sports with regularly. I've hyped him up a little bit in the intros leading up to the show. He's been with us before on our show last year when we talked about hip hop in the South. And it just so happens we're talking about music in the South again, and we decided to invite him on. So we got our brother Walt, aka Wally G. So Walt, tell the people about yourself, man.
Hey, man, just a lover of music, just like you said, man, trying to keep up with you good fellas. But thank you, man. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back. This
yeah, you know, I had to bring Spring 98's finest.
Yes, sir.
my front.
Yes, sir.
Jewel. I had to bring them on the show.
7 and 8
brothers, y'all. These are my big brothers, y'all. So yeah, these are the guys who influenced me to become a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. So I appreciate them and everything they've done for me along the way. So Q, tell the good people why we are here this evening and what we're going to be talking about. And if you can't tell from our shirts, that should probably give you an idea. But I'm going to let Q tell the people what we're talking about today.
Today, we are going to talk about So So Def and LaFace Records, how it influenced ATL, not just in music, but in lifestyle, culture, everything. And so that's why we brought our good brother Wally G on, because he is a connoisseur of music just such as TH and I, as well as he loves ATL music. Now, I ain't going to tell you which label. You're going to figure that out here during the show, but you will figure out that, yes, sir. He is a connoisseur of ATL music, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're going to talk about LaFace and So So Def, we've said leading up to the show in our promo trailer, promo reel, the flyer. These two labels particularly influenced the sound of a generation. They helped shape and craft the soundtrack of our lives. These are the years that all three of us really got heavy into music. So when we talk about favorite groups, favorite songs, oftentimes favorite artists, these are the two labels that they're closely associated with. But before we jump into some history and facts about both labels, want to acknowledge Easter. This is Easter weekend for those who celebrate. So I want to say happy Easter. All right. Easter. And also want to acknowledge some brothers of ours, some fraternity brothers who've experienced some loss in recent weeks. Just want to let those fellas know that they are definitely in our prayers at this time. So we are dedicating this episode to you all. So our prayers, our thoughts and condolences to you all. All right. So before we get into the music and the Q&A session, I want to give some brief history and some facts about LaFace and So So Def. So I'll start with LaFace. Okay, so LaFace, it is the combination of the names L.A. Reid and Babyface, okay, who met as members of the R&B group The Deal in the 80s. And about 87, 88, these brothers start working together. And next thing you know, boom, it was hit after hit after hit. We're talking about Don't Be Cruel, Mercedes Boy, The Whispers, Rock Steady. The Whispers, Get You in the Mood. Like, I'm talking about just nothing but hits these guys were dropping as a production team, and eventually parlayed that into their own record label in 1989 in a joint venture with Arista Records. This label helped launch the careers of acts such as TLC, Outkast, Pink, Usher, Goody Mob, and Donnell Jones. So in a recent interview I was listening to, L.A. Reid said that when him and Babyface approached songwriting, they always approached it with the question, what would Luther Vandross do? They said Luther Vandross influenced their songwriting style because they saw how much of a professional he was when The Deal was on tour with him as an opening act in the mid 80s. So so it makes sense.
Yeah.
songwriting style, the songwriting structure. All right, so 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 Def Recordings was actually founded in '93, began as a production company run by none other than super producer himself, Jermaine Dupri. This label launched the careers of artists such as Lil Bow Wow, Escape, Anthony Hamilton, Jagged Edge, and The Brat. So JD recently shared, actually, this was from a few years back on the Questlove Supreme podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, that those trademark hi-hats that he uses in his song, which has sort of become his sound, the JD sound, he was actually inspired by the drums in 777 9311. That's where those hi-hats came from. Yeah. So couple more facts. So producers and songwriters whose careers were launched by LaFace. All right. LaFace, you got Organized Noise, Dallas Austin, JD indirectly, Candy Burris and Tiny Cotto, and the silent partner himself, one of the architects of some of the best 90s slow jams and R&B records, Mr. Daryl Simmons. Also, for So So Def, producers and songwriters whose careers were launched in or enhanced by So So Def were Manuel Seal, Brian Michael Cox, and Mr. Jonte Austin. So both of these labels, as Q said earlier, are responsible for putting Atlanta on the map. And we're going to get a little bit more into that in our Q&A session. So for this particular session, I'm going to step back, which I don't normally do. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to serve as moderator, and I'm going to relay the questions to Q and Walt. So our first question in our Q&A session today is, all right. So fellas, tell me about the first time you heard a song by either a So So Def or a LaFace artist. And I just kind of went over the roster already. Outkast, TLC, Usher, Criss Cross, Escape. What kind of impact did those songs have on you upon your first initial hearing of them?
I'll defer to my LB first.
Okay. So I was always a Video Soul and Rap City guy. If I remember correctly, Video Soul came on twice a day.
Yep.
And Rap City came on once in the afternoons. 90% of the time, I'm watching all three, right? So that was my first exposure. I think I would say TLC was first.
Yeah.
So how did it impact me? I was happy. I was happy to see people from our region finally on TV contributing to hip hop. I mean, we had Luke, but most times his videos weren't getting played. And if they were, we were watching like this, right?
Yes.
So it was good to see, people 3-4 hours away finally getting some shine in hip hop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Q. What about you, man? First impressions. What type of impact did this sound, these artists have on you upon your first hearing, man?
All right, so the first one I'm gonna start with is So So Def. The first time I heard So So Def artists was none other than Criss Cross, and they was telling everybody jump, jump. And I remember we speak to little middle school days to talk about jump, jump, and trying to wear the clothes backwards and all that. Well, I didn't try because my parents, whatever. But yeah, that was the first So So Def artist. Now, technically, they weren't So So Def when they signed with Jermaine. They were actually on Rough House, Columbia, but that was the entryway for Jermaine to get his distribution deal with, at the time, Sony, right? As far as LaFace Records is concerned, the first LaFace artist I heard was Damien. I remember seeing them on Showtime at the Apollo, and they were singing Get Right Down to It.
You took it back with that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I was like, why is this dude up there with perm hair? No, because look.
You're right. You're right. It was early 90s, man.
I'm saying, look, ignorant 11-year-old, I'm saying dirt road Lats in South Carolina. I'm not used to seeing this.
Right.
I'm used to seeing this. I'm not used to seeing it, right? And so I'm like, why does this dude got perm hair? But he can sing, and the song was dope. And I remember going to the mall that next Saturday and buying that single. So that was actually my first foray, but I didn't realize, because I didn't pay attention to the label at the time, that they were one of the first LaFace Records artists.
Yeah.
As far as impact, I mean, it was just like, I thought it was just great music. Now, I didn't realize, I didn't make the connection between Atlanta and the world at the time. But the next year, I actually went to Atlanta on a family trip, and I saw billboards for Crisscross and all that. And then years later, I went back, and there was a whole billboard for So So Def, one of the first ones you saw entering Atlanta.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm just gonna speak specifically to So So Def, like, or Rough House with Crisscross. Like, I didn't even realize until probably Crisscross' third and final album that they were an Atlanta-based act, because they sounded New York.
Yep.
Like, those guys sounded New York. And knowing what I know about Jermaine now and how he began kind of his entry into the music business with the Fresh Fest and learning about DJing and sampling, it made sense why they sounded the way they sounded. They didn't sound like an Atlanta artist.
Not at all.
Yep.
And that's the crazy part about it. You know, they did not sound like they were from Atlanta. Neither did, you know, like I said, David Dane, Tony Braxton, Usher.
Yep.
You know, none of them sounded like they were from Atlanta. But well, technically Tony's not. But
yeah, Tony's from Maryland. Yeah,
she's from Maryland. Yeah.
So next question for you guys: why do you think the energy and vibe of Atlanta made it perfect for the music to explode the way it did?
Ooh.
Let me go, Keith?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, either one. Yep.
You know, when you look at Atlanta, when you look at Georgia historically, right? Greatness was already there. You know, they had Gladys Knight, you had James Brown, Otis Redding, SOS Band, you know, Georgia Mass Choir. We can go on and on, right? But I think the twist to it is that now you had the second generation guys that saw that greatness in real time. Your Jazzy Faze, your Sleepy Browns, your Jermaine Dupri's. I think Dallas Austin said that his parents owned a nightclub that, you know, had live music. So those guys took that greatness that they saw to a whole different level.
Yep.
You know, totally different level.
Okay.
All right, Q, what you think, man?
Ooh, so from my perspective, you got to look at what was going on in the country at that time. We're talking about first generation, soon to be second generation college students that were flooding all the historic HBCUs, the whole AUC. I mean, Morris Brown, Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman. You had all that greatness that was going on. Then you take Freaknik, which was starting to get, you know, the word about Freaknik was spreading outside of Atlanta. So you had people coming in visiting. And a lot of people, at least from my perspective, Atlanta was like the New York of the South. You know, depending on where you come from, you don't see you don't see skyscrapers, you know, and an abundance of skyscrapers. You know, when I went to Atlanta, I saw Black people not just living, thriving.
Yes.
They were thriving. They were titans in industry. You know, shout out to Maynard Jackson, who was the mayor, and he was a titan of certain industries, right? I saw Black people thriving. I saw Black people owning businesses, large homes, fine cars, making money. You know, it was like a complete dream. So you take that energy of, you know, of now college students transitioning into life, college students coming in, and the vibe of Atlanta just being a Black city in a state such as Georgia. That was the perfect combination for this music to thrive, not just there, but the world. And then when Atlanta won the Olympics, that put them on the international stage.
Yes.
So now everybody knows about Atlanta, and people like me wanted to move there because it was a Black mecca. Although it didn't quite work out, I moved to another Black mecca, but that's another.
So it's funny you say that, Q, because you kind of like segue into my next question. So my next question was going to be, you know, how did the culture of Atlanta, you mentioned Freaknik, you mentioned the HBCUs, but we can't leave out the skating rinks and the talent shows. How did that culture shape the sound and the spirit of the music from that era? And Walt sort of reached back a little bit with that when we talked about Gladys Knight and James and the SOS Band. Can't forget to mention Brick as well. So and Cameo.
And Cameo, yeah. And so I was just about to say, like, you take all of that, you take the energy of people hanging out at the skating rinks, at the arcade, you know, skating rink. You take that energy, you take the I guess the civil rights spirit, right?
Mhm.
Because people had to find a way to sustain themselves during that time. You mix it all up, and that's what I think shaped the sound and the culture. Now, granted, Atlanta had music, within its walls, but outside of Brick and the SOS band, and then eventually Cameo, that's what it was limited to. Nobody really saw any of the greatness that was eventually about to come out until LaFace decided to relocate because neither one of them are from Atlanta. And then here comes Jermaine, homegrown product
Mhm.
that dropped something on the world. So it's just you take it everything that encompassed Atlanta, everything that encompassed Black Atlanta, that whole spirit. That's what was infused into the music.
Yeah. All right, Walt, what you think, man?
In Q, I agree with everything you said, but to take it a step further, I'll say, just like you said, everyone was seeing what Atlanta was doing, So I think it was inspiring. They inspired the New Orleans and Chicago and Detroit, Houston to reemerge on a bigger stage to say, Atlanta's doing this big. We can do this also,
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent point there, fellas. All right. So my next question to you guys is, how did LaFace and So So Def shift the way the world viewed Atlanta as a music city? Because you had Motown, you had New York, you had Los Angeles, to an extent, Houston, Miami, some of these other cities were sort of doing their thing, but all of a sudden, early to mid 90s hit, and boom, Atlanta became sort of this, it exploded, man. And it became even more so that way when Andre 3000 got up on the stage at the Source Awards that year and said, the South got something to say. So why do you think that sort of made Atlanta change the view of Atlanta as sort of this music city or this Black Mecca?
You got it, Walt.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, the world saw Atlanta in a light that is very diverse. We know the greatness of Jermaine. We know the greatness of L.A. Reid and Babyface. But you have to factor in also the guys that those guys trusted with their artists. The Little Johns, the Jazzy Fays, the DJ Toomps. These guys were trusted to sustain what they built. To sustain what Atlanta has become to be.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think a lot of people just saw Atlanta as just another East Coast city that wanted to be like a larger East Coast city, such as Philly and or New York. But Atlanta was able to kind of distinguish themselves from those two places simply through the sound.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, I mean, the only cities down south at the time that were seen as a music city was Nashville and to a lesser in Memphis, right?
Mhm.
Those are like your big music centric centers. So when Atlanta came on the map, everybody's looking like, wait a minute, where did they come from?
Mhm.
How could this, because they weren't known as the major music city, but it's something that got built up over time. And so because Atlanta just exploded, everybody they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to categorize it. They just couldn't figure it out, which is what I love. And like Walt said earlier, this actually spawned other cities to say, you know what, we're going to do this too, such as New Orleans is a prime example. Because New Orleans was a music city, but it was only contained to New Orleans and maybe the surrounding area. But come mid 90s, No Limit and Cash Money said, it's our turn now.
Mhm.
Memphis blew up even further as a music city because in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then for a while it just seemed like there was a lull. But in the 90s, guess who came up? 3-6 Mafia,
Yep.
Mhm.
8 Ball and MJG, you
Yep.
know? And so every other place started saying, if they could do it, I could do it too. So that's how, in my opinion, Atlanta became the epicenter. But what really set it off was the infamous Source Awards in 1995. When Andre 3000 said, the South got something to say. Everybody's like, it's on.
Finally. Finally, yep. The statement that basically made the people start paying attention to what was going on in the South. Now, we haven't talked hip hop in a while, but we'll briefly discuss this. And Neltron brought up a good point. He said Rico Wade said they knew what New York was doing, but they wanted their own sound. So Walt, you and I think you and I, Q, and even JB, we've talked about this before about Atlanta pre-LaFace and hip hop. Kind of talk about that a little bit and what hip hop was in Atlanta prior to Outkast, because a lot of people don't think hip hop existed before then in Atlanta. So kind of talk a little bit about that, man, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
If I can remember, my first exposure to Atlanta hip hop was a guy named Shy D, who was on Luke Records. So, like you said before, Miami was doing this thing. Atlanta hip hop was kind of an extension for a while, until Jermaine and Organized Noise and all those guys came through.
Yeah. Okay. Q, you had anything you wanted to add to that?
So I think hip hop in Atlanta was, like Walt said, it was bass heavy, Miami bass sound. I remember I was just typing in the chat that this first song I heard, rap song, not only was from MC Shy D, but also a rapper named Kilo Ali.
Yeah.
And he had a song that was called Bankhead Bounce Donkey Kong.
I remember that.
I think that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
Somebody could correct me, but I do remember that song. And I think it was mainly bass heavy, booty shake, because they were influenced by Miami. And so with Organized Noise coming out with their own thing, it just said, you know what, this is cool, but now we're gonna do something a little bit more organic. And like somebody pointed out, that Red Clay helped them do it.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Kilo Q, because Organized Noise was in the process of having their own record label, and Kilo was going to be their very first artist.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So yeah, fellas, thank y'all for indulging me with those questions, man. Y'all definitely dropped some gems. And one thing that Q and I always say we strive to do, man, we don't just want to talk about the songs. We also want to put everything in its proper context and make sure that we look closely into why the music is the way it is. So definitely want to go into some history and some cultural and some social implications as far as why LaFace and So So Def was sort of ripe for the picking and why those two labels helped Atlanta just explode on the music scene. So let's get into the music, man. Let's get into the music. All right. This is why we're here. This is why a lot of people watch, because we're going to talk about top 5 songs, LaFace and So So Def. And I don't know about y'all, but this was hard as hell to try to limit this list to 5. Because as Walt said earlier on the sort of pre-show, we were talking before the show, like you didn't want to lean heavy one way and not forget this, or, oh man, I forgot about this artist. Oh, I got to make sure I mention this artist. So we limited it to 5, but just know y'all, it was not easy to come up with 5. Right. So again, these are our 5 top songs from artists from both labels in no particular order. All right, so Walt, since you are our guest, we're going to allow you to kick us off.
Okay. So my number 5, I'm going to go to the Drinking Partners album from the Young Bloods. The song Damn. I love the crunk era, love everything about it. To me, if there was a signature song of the crunk era, this would be it. Yeah. It's your ultimate motivation song, for your morning commute, for your, going to the gym, everything, probably with the exception of responding to that one work email. This is your motivation song.
Ooh, man.
Yes.
Yeah, man. And if I remember correctly, the Young Bloods are the only artists to be signed to both labels.
Yep, they were Ghetto Vision, right? Ghetto Vision / LaFace.
Yeah,
and that was with Kawan Prather.
Yeah.
Yep, KP. Man, this right here this song right here, this was an anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is an anthem. And of course, you got what's I don't forgot the name of the two guys in the group, man, but they going bar for bar. It's
J-Bo and Sean Paul.
Yeah, J-Bo and Sean Paul, man. You got Lil Jon, who was like on the radio everywhere.
Yeah.
From 01 to like 05. If you needed a hit, you needed something crunk to go on the radio, Lil Jon was your go-to guy. And this right here, man, like I said, this song, when it hit, it hit hard.
Ooh, I do remember when this joint came out, because when it came out, I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and they played this song at a particular club. Yeah, it kind of went up.
I was gonna say, yeah, it probably got ugly fast if I know what club you're talking about.
It went all the way up. It got ugly real fast when this song came on, and yeah, we literally had to run out. So that's just how powerful this joint was. But like Walt said, it's a motivational song for sure. In the gym, in the commute, you about to hit send on that email? Nope. Get up and walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that, man. That's a great way to kick us off. So, Walt, you did something different, man. You took us out of order. That's fine. No, we can pivot. So we're gonna go 5 through 1. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna go 5. My number 5. We talked about her on our Ladies First episode. And I said, this is one of my favorite hip hop albums of the 90s. This was the first album by a female rapper to ever go platinum. It was the second album that came out on So So Def Recordings. And that album was The Brat's Functified. And this was the third and final single that was released off this album. But when they released the video, they didn't release the album version of the song. They actually released the remix from the video as the single. And that is Give It To You, the remix by The Brat. I like the remix better than the original. Like the remix the original is smooth because it got that Rick James, Mary Jane Girls All Night Long beat. But man, like JD put them horns on it and them hi-hats and the keys. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of my favorite songs, one of them songs that I still know the words to. And of course, it gave you the trademark word up. Hey, for real though. Yeah. And the video had everybody in that video. Everybody was in that video. Goody Mob, Usher, Mary J. Blige, Biggie, TLC, Bill Bellamy was like a chauffeur at the house party. Keith Murray was in the video. Like everybody who was everybody in the music industry in '94 when this single dropped was in this video. Even Mr. Bad Boy himself. Yeah. What you call him? Q? What's his name? He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named, but he might end up getting named.
Yeah. He who shall not be named. But yeah, that video was so dope, man. And the Brat, I just loved her flow, man. She was so dope.
Yeah.
And that really was JD's house, also.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Man, that's so dope, man. But yeah, that's one of my favorite songs from the Brat. Yeah. I was listening to that album today, man. It still rises the age extremely well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in fact, the Brat
here, that joint, yeah.
So the Brat actually won Soul Train Lady of Soul Award in 1995 for Functified for Best Rap Album.
Okay.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
Definitely well deserved on that.
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna go to your number 5, Q. Who's your number 5, man?
All right, so my number 5 comes to us from LaFace Records. This artist was one of its first signees. I think he was like 12, 13 years old when he signed with them. The song is entitled Think of You Remix, ironically remixed by So So Def in 1994. The artist is Usher.
Yeah.
And so when I was researching this, I found out that the original song came out in November 94 off his album.
Yeah.
The writers on that song, on the original song, was none other than Donnell Jones, label mate, and Faith Evans.
Correct.
A Bad Boy. The album itself was produced by Mr. Bad Boy himself.
Yeah.
He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. And then you got the remix produced by Jermaine. So that shows the cross-label collaboration, which I'm not surprised between the Bad Boy and LaFace collabo because they were all distributed by Arista.
Yeah.
And then here Jermaine gave him, the remix, and he's done a few other remixes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like this one. I just always like the beat of it. Jermaine flipped the beat around because the other one was kind of smooth, mid-tempo. And then Jermaine kind of put a little bit more soul into it. And he also incorporated Craig Mack.
Yes, sir. He did. Yeah.
He incorporated Craig Mack into the song too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I thought it was dope that you had all this collaboration and the way that he just flipped things around. But the problem is that I think they might have released it as a single, but it was one of those you couldn't find at the regular, record store spots. You had to go, off the beaten path to like what used to be Manifest, now I think it's Monster Music type place in order to find it. But I always thought that this one was hot.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. Man, it's crazy, man. Now that it makes sense why this would be a collaboration, because you got an Arista, two artists who Craig Mack, of course, Bad Boy Arista, Puff, Bad Boy Arista, then LaFace with Arista. So the collaboration and the connections all made sense.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So Walt, what's your number 4, man? What you got?
Okay. So I'm gonna swing back over to So So Def. This is off the Hook album by Escape. The song is Do You Want To? Love this song. It's one of those collaborations that we talked about. Daryl Simmons wrote and produced the song.
There it is. Yep, LaFace Records.
Yeah, he was co-writing for Babyface, but took the lead on this one. For the younger people watching, if you've never heard Tamika Harris lead a song, this is the song for you to listen to. This is 10 p.m. Quiet Storm / Sweat Hotel music.
Yeah.
From that era. So shout out to Daryl Simmons.
Yeah. I mean, Tamika Tiny, she sung her ass off on this.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. Shout out to Daryl Simmons, man. Shout out to Daryl Simmons. Like everybody associates him with, of course, those are his boys, LA and Babyface, but he has some writing credits on his own now. That brother can write. And this is an example of one of those. Yeah, he was definitely in his bag on this joint right here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that was I want to say that was off of Escape's second album.
Yep.
Off the Hook. I can't remember it. Off the Hook. Yeah. And so I remember the album itself, the CD cover was the shape of an old school telephone where,
Yep.
So that was dope. And I think this was the first album of theirs to go platinum. So so I remember that album. Well, the whole joint rides, whole album rides. Yeah. So, but as Walt said, this is one of them ones where you was at the house party and the lights get turned off all of a sudden. Yeah.
This was prime caking hours right here when you were listening to this song right here. Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'm gonna go to my number 4 next, man. I chose a song off of So So Def. So this time I'm gonna go to LaFace for my number 4. So believe it or not, fellas, this is the first time I've ever doubled up on a song, because I tried not to. I tried to make sure I have different songs for different episodes, but I featured this song in our top 10 90s hip hop and R&B show back when we did in October of last year, Q. And this is one of my top 5 hip hop songs of all time, not just from the 90s. And it's the title cut from Outkast's third album, Aquemini, song of the same title.
Him and I.
Yeah, it's Him and I, Aquemini. So, man, this one of my favorite songs. The beat is just funky as all get out. Organized Noise did their thing on it. To me, this song is the perfect explanation of the group's dynamic. And even how they're contrasting styles. You got Big Boy, he's Southern cool, kind of that pimp, slick talk. And then Andre 3000 became Andre 3000 during this time. Sort of that cosmic, otherworldly, just lyrical dexterity. I mean, I'm using the Mariah Carey word on that one, but like, and that last verse, the Andre spits on this joint is absolutely
insane,
ridiculous. It's insane, man. To me, that's one of the best 16 in hip hop history, period. But I love this song. This is my favorite Outkast album. And interesting fact I learned about Outkast as artists, L.A. Reid and Babyface signed them and Tony Braxton 2 weeks apart from each other.
Wow.
Yep.
In 92. So it's funny, man. Now that you think about, like, when artists get signed, record labels immediately push them out there. They don't even try to develop an artist. They don't even try to give them an image. They don't try to give them a sound. They immediately put them out there like that. And these guys, Outkast and Tony Braxton, were signed in 92. Their first albums didn't come out till 93.
Right.
Yeah. That's and well, and Outkast 94, Tony Braxton 93. So you're talking about a year where they actually spent time cutting songs, making sure we got the right image. We're going to put out the correct single. That don't happen anymore. Now it's all about them likes, shares, and that dopamine hit. What can I get people to listen to in 15 seconds and like?
Yep.
But yeah, so shout out to L.A. Reid for developing these guys along with Organized Noise and their influence to make that first album a smash and to give us consecutive hit after hit after hit album with Outkast. Yeah. So I'm gonna go to the comments right here, man. Real quick. We haven't hit the comments up. Brother Davis said the musical production of the album was a change from what you got from a rap album. Yeah, man. I mean, yeah. And we also got to give a shout out to Outkast themselves because they did a lot of their own production on this album too. It wasn't just Organized Noise. Yeah, you started seeing more of them working on their own with that sound. Yeah, so this album right here actually reached number 2 on the U.S. Billboard 200 and was the top R&B hip hop album when it was released on the Billboard charts. Even though we all know 1998 was the year of DMX. All right, so that was my number 4. Q, what's your number 4, man?
All right. This number 4 came to us in July 1998. So 1.5 million albums total, which I was kind of surprised it didn't sell more, but it is what it is. It went platinum in the US, 500K in Canada. The song itself is called Money Ain't a Thing from the album Life in 1472, Jermaine Dupri featuring Jay-Z. So, interesting fact, I always wanted to know, what was Jermaine talking about? Why did he name his album Life in 1472? And if you remember the cover of the album, it looked like a movie reel, right?
Yep.
So while I was researching, I found out that there's a meaning behind 1472. 14 represents his initials because J is the 10th letter of the alphabet. D is the 4th. So 10 plus 4, 14. 72, the year he was born.
Wow.
It took me all this time. 27 years?
Yeah, 27 years this summer. Yeah.
27 years to figure out that's what 1472 meant. But let me tell you, when we got back to campus, it was not a party. I don't care who had the party.
Go
you heard
the song.
Money Ain't a Thing. Every single Russell House party played Money Ain't a Thing. People was riding down Green Street. Money Ain't a Thing. Mm-hmm. This song was hot. And the fact that you took Jermaine and Jay-Z, two contract. Well, Jermaine, I don't really classify him as a rapper, but Jay-Z definitely for sure. So when you take those two contrasting styles and behind that beat that Jermaine was able to flip with the sample, it was hot as a firecracker.
Yeah, that's that Steve Arrington sample.
Yes, it is. Yep.
He flipped that thing.
And so this was like one of the top albums, one of the classic albums from 98, of which there were many. It was a whole lot that came out that year. But this one right here was definitely top 10, kept it in rotation.
Yeah. You know, JD brought up a good point, man. I was listening to a podcast with him he was talking about Money Ain't a Thing. And he said Columbia didn't want him to release this as the first single off, one of the singles off the album. Because he actually wanted him to produce, they actually wanted him to put out Mariah Carey's Sweetheart first. Because they was like, you got this song Mariah Carey, why you want to come out with a song with Jay-Z? Because let's be real, in 98, Jay-Z wasn't hitting in the South yet.
Right.
Because Hard Knock Life hadn't dropped yet. I mean, he had a buzz, but he wasn't hitting yet. But this right here sort of set the stage for Jay-Z to blow up once that Hard Knock Life album was released in September of that year. So this album came out, I think it's either July or August of 98. But like you said, Q, this was one of the summer anthems of 1998, bro.
Yep. And so I just posted that, he sampled the song Weak in the Knees by a group named Slave, which Steve Arrington was a part of.
Okay.
But yeah, that song, when I started reminiscing, I was like, I got to include this one because everybody who was on campus at that time, and not just our campus, I'm sure any campus remembers at that time, that song, you heard it at a party. You heard it at the club. You heard it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and TH, I think we watched the same podcast because JD also talked about how from the ride from the airport to his studio, Jay wrote his verse.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, crazy. He said that. I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Because he said they got to the studio and Jay-Z was like, hey man, where your engineer at? And he was like, he not here. He's like, well, I already got the song. I'm ready to record. And he said he called the engineer, called him up, and Jay-Z laid his 3 verses right there. Boom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. This is definitely a classic. Definitely a classic. Yeah. All right. So we are at number 4. We're going to go to our number 3. All right. If you just jumped in, first time watching, or first time tuning into this particular episode, you just got here. We're talking about the impact of LaFace and So So Def. So now we're actually going over our top 5 songs, hip hop or R&B from each label. So Wally, give us your number 3, man.
Okay. So number 3, I am going to go to the Soul Food album, 1995. This song may not be as well known as the others on this list, but this one is special to me. It's the Dark Process by Goody Mob. You know, with respect to your UGKs, your Outkastes, Ball and G's, Poison Clan, all these groups, I always thought that Goody was like the voice box for the South, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the things they rapped about, we could relate to, and that's what I love about this song so much. There's a part in the song where CeeLo goes, I kind of like being poor. At least I know what my friends here for. Now, none of us want to be poor. None of us would enjoy being poor. But I get what he was saying from the standpoint of if you have that small circle of people around you that are there for you through the highs and the lows, that's better than anything that money can buy for you. So that's what I love about this song, man. The beat was so unique, typical Ray Murray.
Yeah.
And this was the song that made me realize that Andre 3000 lyrically was different. That last verse was it's amazing what these guys are thinking about at 19, 20 years old.
Right.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah. That verse, man, like I still remember getting the Goody Mob album and listening to the song, and it got to Andre's verse. I swear, I rewound that thing back like 5 or 6 times to catch what he was saying, and I was like, man, this, like you're right, man, he definitely deserves that 3000 moniker because he was rapping in the future 30 years ago. Yeah. You're right about that CeeLo verse, man. Like he said it like. I think they were the first group to maybe realize that musicians don't make no whole bunch of money. Like the lifestyle ain't as glamorous as it make it seem. Because he said like you might see a dude on TV, but it's almost like I'm rapping for free, man. That little money be gone. That's real. Like these cats still got bills to pay. He telling the truth, man. That's when I realized that the music industry ain't as glamorous as it seems. Yeah, I got to keep the lights on, man.
Yep. And just to piggyback off of what Walt said, I mean, Goody Mob was our conscious music, because at that point, the conscious rap started fading away due to a number of factors. But Goody Mob kept it going, and they did it Southern style.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Neltron said Goody Mob was woke before that word was popular and before it was hijacked. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go to my number 3 next, man. So my number 3 comes from the diva of LaFace Records herself, Miss Toni Braxton. To me, this is one of the best albums of the 90s. Not just one of the best albums of the 90s, man, but to me, one of the best R&B debuts ever. And it was the 4th single off this album. She had given us like 3 like phenomenal songs back to back to back. We talking prior to this song being released, you had Another Sad Love Song. I'm not saying it in order. Another Sad Love Song, Breathe Again, and 7 Whole Days. In addition to the song she did with Babyface on the Boomerang soundtrack. And I know Q, you'll get to that later, but like she came out the gate smoking, man. And this is my favorite Toni Braxton song. And one of the comments I wrote when I was taking notes on this was Babyface and L.A. Reid and Daryl Simmons wrote the hell out of this song. And that song is You Mean the World to Me. Dude. Man. Classic. I mean, that's classic, man. And it's the melody is simple. I mean, it's a beautifully written song, man.
It is.
If you got somebody that makes you feel that way, it makes it that more relatable.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Toni, man. She influenced a generation of young ladies with that hairstyle right there. That pixie cut, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Little known fact about Toni Braxton. So the Boomerang soundtrack was originally supposed to have been a compilation of songs that Babyface in LA wrote and produced for Anita Baker.
Yeah.
Wow. She turned it down. But she heard the demo and Toni was singing on the demo. So she asked them, she said, well, who's the girl singing on the demo? And it was like, oh, that's one of our new artists, Toni Braxton. It's like, she's like, well, why don't you get her to sing the songs? That was career suicide.
Yeah.
But people. No, yeah. So that basically, I'm not gonna say that. That's being harsh, but like, but so that basically changed the Boomerang soundtrack from being an album that was going to be an artist-centric album, kind of like in the mold of like what Curtis Mayfield did with the Claudine soundtrack with Gladys Knight and the Pips, and then with the Shaft soundtrack with Isaac Hayes. Like instead of it being one artist, they used that as an opportunity to showcase all the artists that were on LaFace or had done work with LaFace. But yeah, so shout out to Anita Baker. Thank you for helping give us Toni Braxton in this album.
But to be honest, I don't feel like Anita would have fit that album.
No.
She wouldn't have fit that album for the time just because her style was way different than the music that was produced on that album.
True.
Yeah. She has sort of that jazzy, like jazzy adult contemporary sound.
But, right. Yeah. And that album was definitely like New Jack Swing, early 90s.
Yeah. And I want to give I want to give shout out to people now. They forget that L.A. Reid was a drummer. He was a hell of a drummer before he became a music exec and a songwriter and producer. But that brother killed the drums on this song, man. He absolutely killed it.
Sure did.
All right. So Q, what's your number 3, man?
All right. So my number 3, I'm going to stay with So So Def. This album, the album came out in October 1996. Song is entitled Live It Up from the Another Tantrum album done by none other than Da Brat. Now, I was surprised because this album only went gold. And I'm kind of shocked by that because the way that Funkify came out and hit everybody upside the head, you would have thought that this album, because I thought the album was solid.
Me too.
Start to finish. But for whatever reason, people just weren't feeling it or they slept on it. So in my mind, it hit kind of the sophomore jinx only in the sense that it didn't sell as much or surpass Funkify. So the song Live It Up, I remember I was listening to it, and at the time there was another song very similar
Yep. Yep.
Very similar to this by
Yep.
an artist by a dude named Akinyele.
Akinyele.
Oh,
If you know
man.
Akinyele, you can pretty much guess what song it is. The joint was hot. The joint was played all over the place. Again, every Russell House party
Yep.
played this song.
Every.
But I like how the brat basically flipped it.
Yep.
And she was like, put this in your
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's technically could be an anthem,
Yeah.
An anthem to get you going.
JD killed the beat on this, man. And then I didn't realize, man, until I was listening to it this week when you told me this was gonna be on your list. And then like the second verse, it's the same drums from Biggie's Dead Wrong.
Yep, sure is.
You know, man. I was like, okay, I see what we doing here.
Yep. So so that was my number 3. I mean, I just like the energy of it,
Oh yeah.
Just like the energy of it. And like I said, I just like how she flipped Akinyele song on his head with this.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love that we've given the brat her flowers our last 2 episodes because she certainly is deserving of that, man. She's definitely deserving of all of that. Yeah, so we are going to go to our number 2. So we moving right along, man. We moving right along. All right. Walt, what's your number 2, man?
All right. Let's swing to the Confessions album by Usher. Yeah.
Oh.
Going back to what I said before about loving that crunk era,
Mm-hmm.
man, when you hear that piece up, A-Town down.
Yep.
It's time to hit the dance floor,
Yeah.
One thing about it, during JD's podcast, he mentioned if you look at the Confessions album in terms of a story, doesn't fit into that story at all.
It don't.
Nope.
At all. Mm-hmm. But that's the genius of John and Usher to push the envelope to have a crunk R&B song.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Just love it, man. Just love it. And it was the gateway to other crunk R&B songs from, like Sierra, Nivea. You had what's her name, Brooke Valentine from Girl Fight, but that was first. That was the first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
It was a gamble, I'm sure, but it paid off.
Yeah. And as our brother JB always says, it is never, ever, ever safe to leave your girl around Usher. It's never safe to leave your girl around Usher. Like, so Neltron said, he's right. Yeah, was a bomb. He was like, it went viral everywhere. Even white folks was dancing to it. Now, listen.
To this day, they still.
To this day, you can hit that is a wedding reception, school dance banger. Yeah. Like these kids know that song, all the words. They know the rap. They know the ad libs and everything, man. Like, yeah, you're right, man. You know what's funny? We shout out to our sister Chastity that's watching. When we did, I had the fortunate opportunity to be on her podcast, Midnight R&B Editions, when we did a tribute to Usher's Confessions album. Last year was the 20th anniversary. And Usher didn't like, he wanted Burn to be the first single.
Right.
I'm glad they talked him out of it.
Glad too.
Yeah.
So that Usher Confessions album was probably the first album made for men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like it's a lot of dudes that was, around during that time when that album came out. A lot of us bought that album because you could relate to it as a man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every single song, man.
Yep. So that was a classic.
Yeah.
All right. So since we on Usher, man, my number 2 is from Usher too. Like this isn't necessarily my favorite Usher song, but I chose it because of the impact that it had on his career. And Q, you talked a little bit about, you talked earlier about the song "Think of You" from his first album, and after that album was released, it did its thing in the Black community, but it was lukewarm as far as album sales were concerned. And Usher knew that, and let's just keep it real. JD even said it himself. If the My Way album didn't hit, Usher was gonna get dropped by LaFace. Wow. And I don't think it was any of his own doing. I just don't think L.A. Reid knew what to do with him as an artist at the time.
Yeah.
So he basically gave him to JD and was like, "Here, I've seen what you've done with Criss Cross and some of these other artists. do your thing. I want you to style him. I want you to develop him. I want you to write some songs with him that fit him. And he gave him this. You Make Me Wanna from his 1997 album, My Way. Dude, this song right here, this was probably the defining moment in Usher's career. We don't get Usher at the Super Bowl. We don't get Confessions. We don't get Usher residency in Las Vegas. We don't get the legacy that we know as Usher without this song right here. So this began a relationship with JD that continues to affect him even to this day. So yeah, JD was the perfect person to craft the sound that Usher needed to take his career to the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I can believe what you're saying too about him being dropped, because in L.A. Reid's book, he mentions that Babyface actually kind of favored Tevin Campbell more than us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. LA didn't know what to do with him. So, like I said, he gave JD free reins, and he gave him this banger. Top 10 Billboard hit, number 2 on the R, number 2 actually. The number 1 song on the Billboard charts that year, when this song dropped, was LeAnn Rimes' "How Do I Live," which was a hit. If you know music, you know that was a hit. Yeah. But this was number 1 on the R&B charts. And all I'm gonna say about this song is them damn hi-hats, man.
Yep.
The hi-hats on this joint is as loud as Usher's vocals.
Yep, it is.
That's JD. That's that JD trademark sound, man.
It is. And it's funny that you say that, and I've heard that before too, that Usher was about to get dropped because LA didn't know what to do. I feel like he did the same thing with another Atlanta artist named T.I., who went by TIP at the time. I feel like he didn't know what to do, but instead of giving him a shot, he dropped him after the first album, and well, the rest is history.
Yeah. Sometimes it's about who you're connected to or who your label can connect you to, and that's what that was the case with this, because of that interconnection, and Jermaine being in Atlanta and him seeing the work that he'd done with young artists. Take Usher and do what you got to do with him, and then the next thing you know, you get You Make Me Wanna, you get Nice and Slow, you get My Way, and Usher becomes a superstar. Yeah.
So yeah.
Somebody said, so we ain't getting no Donnell Jones look. We ain't there yet. Drake, give us time, man.
Yeah, give us a shot. I mean, we told you this was a hard list to come up with.
Give us time, man. Give us time. All right. So, and we should have known that Usher was a problem when he came out with this song. You Make Me Want to Leave the One I'm With to start a new relationship. He gonna leave his girl to go be with his friend.
That's where it all started.
That's where it all started. Yeah, Usher told us he was giving breadcrumbs. Yeah, he was giving breadcrumbs, man. He was trying to let us know. All right, Q, what's your number 2, man?
All right, so my number 2 came to us from LaFace Records by way of the Boomerang soundtrack. Song is entitled "Give You My Heart," none other than Tony Braxton, Babyface featuring Tony Braxton.
Sleeper.
I don't know why this song had and or has me in a chokehold. I think it's because it incorporates all the elements of that early 90s sound.
Yeah.
That is just a pure early 90s R&B song. Duet, what I'm saying? Mid-tempo, melodic.
Yeah.
And
their voices match each other perfectly.
Correct. Yeah. Voices match each other. Tony was starting to take off career-wise. Babyface was already establishing himself. And the duet going back and forth matched, some of the things that happened in the movie Boomerang. So I felt like as if the first time I heard the song, I was like, okay, this is dope. This hot. I mean, this reminds me, of people wearing the silk or rayon paisley shirts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dress slacks, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
and hard bombs with the metal in the front. I'm telling you, this is a pure early '90s song.
You just described my seventh grade Easter outfit. You just described my seventh grade Easter outfit, man. Looking like Will Smith in the Fresh Prince.
That was the middle school. That was the middle school get up right there. You know, the middle school dance get up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, this song was hot. The song was hot. The whole soundtrack itself is a classic and was hot. And it was one of the few I think that a lot of people latched onto. Because I know myself, I didn't buy soundtracks like that.
Yeah.
But this, I think, opened a portal, so to speak, for people to start buying those soundtracks. Because in the 90s, a lot of movie soundtracks came out that was,
In some cases, in some cases, the soundtrack was better than the movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or
prime example.
Yeah.
So so "Give Me My Heart" is just like I said. I just love it. It came to us in June of 1992, which is when I believe the movie itself came out. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a classic. Gotta make sure it's in your collection.
Yeah. If you don't have Boomerang soundtrack in your music collection or in your streaming library, please download that, man. That's not just soundtrack. That's one of the best albums of the 90s.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But like I said earlier, man, this was LaFace. This album put LaFace on the map. Like, this was the album that made people start paying attention. Like, oh shit, what they got going on down there in Atlanta? Because it featured all their artists at the time who had already put out, like, Introduce the World of Tony Braxton. TLC was on there as well. But of course, you got the songs, the other slow jams and ballads, Keith Washington and Johnny Gill, man.
Yep.
All right. So where are we at now? All right. So we're at the top of the list. Again, these weren't in necessarily no particular order. We just decided to go 5 to 1. All right. Well, give us your number 1 on your list.
I don't think it's going to be a surprise who these brothers are, right? Go to the Quemini album, man. Rosa Parks. This is 1998. You have DMX, you have Juvenile, you have Jay-Z, you got Mystical killing every feature that he's on. But somehow these guys again find a way to come out of complete left field. And bring something that we've never heard before. Like, who thinks to put a harmonica solo in the middle of a rap song and make it work? Outkast. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just amaze me time after time, man. And I gotta say this, and I'm probably speaking to the wrong audience right now, but for anyone that thinks that Big Boy is not an elite MC, I need you to listen to the first verse of this song and tell me any rapper, past or present, that can set that song off like he did, because I can't think of one. Not one. So
not
we
a
gotta
one.
give these brothers flowers, man. For real.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Andre, because we know what Andre's place in hip hop is, but you ain't got Andre without Big Boy. You gotta. We need to put some respect on him too, man. Many a day has passed and that has gone by, but still I find the time to put that bump off in your eye. He went in, man. Yeah. The brother went in on there, and I remember this was one of those songs that went everywhere. That was on everything. You heard this song all the time. Like, this was Outkast's first foray into top 40 radio, because even the pop stations were playing Rosa Parks.
Right.
Yeah. And
I believe that harmonica solo was Dre's stepfather.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's and dope. You know, of course, it just rang off. It's a Russell House classic.
Another
classic. I'm sure you heard it on another classic that you heard probably on every yard, club, lounge, disco, oak tree. It was, again, a 1998 staple.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm gonna put this on here. Neltron dropped the gem, man. He said, We get it. Big Boy is so dope. Everyone's been leaving him out of the conversation lately. Big Boy's been rhyming at a high level since Southern Playlist. Exactly. And he's still putting out music consistently.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still pays respect to that sound that we've grown accustomed to.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. So my number one is from these young ladies right here. All right. From their debut album, Ooh, on the TLC tip. Now, I remember as a kid going to Circuit City and seeing TLC's album, this particular album, in the rap section. But then Crazy Sexy Cool was in the R&B section. So that first album, they didn't know how to define these girls. Nope. They had no idea how to define them. So I went back. So I watched the video for this song to prepare for this show. And in the video, the intro of the video, scrolling on the screen, it says funkiness, rap, and straight R&B. That was the sound that TLC gave us with this first album. So I chose the third single from TLC's debut album, and that's What About Your Friends. Dude, Dallas Austin did his thing on this joint, man. Like, the one thing I always liked about Dallas Austin's production, like, he layers those samples so well. Like, I mean, you don't know until you go back and break it down. Like, this song included a sample from James Brown, and then Sly Stone's Single Simple Song. It was James Brown's Blues and Pants. It's the exact same beat. But this song was almost foreshadowing for TLC because it talked about fake friends and lack of loyalty and not trusting people. And then they end up happening to them when they realized they weren't making a whole lot of money despite the success of those first two albums, particularly that second album, which made them a worldwide phenomenon, man. But this song was foreshadowing, like, what about your friends? I mean, yeah, they say I changed because I got money. If you've been down with me before, you still gonna be down with me. So basically, they were singing about like people betraying them and treating them different because they got a little money and things like that. Everything that we can relate to. And the one thing I always say about TLC's music was it was music with a message that you could dance to. You didn't realize until you went back and listened to the lyrics that these sisters were like talking about some real stuff, man. Like this song, they had a song on that first album called His Story. Of course, you got Waterfalls, Unpretty. Like they always made sure that you were not only were you gonna dance, but you also gonna think at the same time.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That Ooh on the TLC tip was again another classic. I had it on tape. I think I missed that on tape somewhere. But you're right, it is a game changer.
Yeah.
And that song, What About Your Friends? You know, if you listen to it deeply, as you know, that definitely applies in real life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, speaking of T-Boz's low register, Jermaine said that's not T-Boz's actual singing voice. Jermaine said that she started singing like that because when he would write songs, that's his singing voice. He sung his demos like that. So T-Boz picked up that sound from him and she ended up singing like that. And L.A. Reid was like, let's stick with that because it makes you different than anybody that's out right now. So that's not her actual singing voice. That's so dope. That's so dope.
That is dope.
Yeah. And I also learned recently that TLC was supposed to have been Jermaine's group, but he didn't have a record label at the time.
Right.
Yeah, because he knew Left Eye, he knew Tion, and then Chili joined the group later. And Left Eye actually did him a favor and called and said, hey, we got a meeting with Pebbles. And he was like, well, go ahead and meet with them. Not knowing that they were going to become what they became. But he still showed love to him. He was always in their music videos and vice versa.
And credit to T-Boz, man. She brought the dungeon to LaFace. Rico and T-Boz worked together in like a hair store or something. And through that relationship is how the Dungeon family and Organized Noise got to LaFace. So thank you, sister.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, and that just speaks to, I want to give a shout out to L.A. Reid and Babyface because they knew they were strictly R&B and pop records. But they listened to what the streets wanted and went out and got these younger guys, Organized Noise, JD, Dallas Austin, to come in and sort of be like their eyes and ears on what was going on and help them craft the sound. So that's, you got to respect that, because a lot of cats from that era wasn't doing that, man. They were, we're gonna be responsible for the sound.
Right.
So that's vision right there.
Yeah.
All right. So Q, we on your last one, man. Number one. What you got?
So we've already showcased this album about 2 or 3 times, but I had to give mine.
I didn't think about that. We took 3 songs off this album. Yeah.
And I got to give you my song from the album that I like so much.
Yeah.
So swinging back to LaFace Records, this joint came out September 1998. Quimini album, The Art of Storytelling, Outkast.
Oh man.
The whole song is dope, start to finish. Like, you know how like it just kind of starts out nice and easy, and then it goes into the groove. And you know, Big Boy tells a story, and Andre 3000 tells a story.
Yeah.
Then they gave us a remix with Slick Rick, who is also a master storyteller, and they incorporated Muppets into that video.
Yes, which is the big craze on social media right now. Like, yeah, they would
who else could do that but Outkast?
Yeah,
right.
You know what I'm saying? But this song was solid from start to finish.
Yeah,
I mean, I still play this song to this day, just because of how the flow went.
Yeah,
you know, between the two.
Susie Q and Sasha Thumper.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Man.
So yeah, man. The art of storytelling was always one of my favorites. Now I'm kind of surprised when I was looking at how much it sold. So this album went 3 times platinum here, but it also went gold in Canada and silver in the UK. So it sold over a little over 3.1 million in total. But part of me thinks I would have expected more. So I think a lot of people still slept on this album, even though Outkast had established themselves as being solid at that point.
Yeah.
So golly. Yeah, we chose 3 songs off this album, man.
Yep.
And then you talked about the art. So this is the art of storytelling 1. Then you had the remix with Slick Rick, and then the art of storytelling 2, where they completely changed the beat and the flow up.
Yep. Sure.
And they sort of went that rock and roll thing, man. That was so dope, man.
Yep.
Yeah. I asked her what she wanted to be. She said alive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, if you listen to it, even though they was telling a story, it was deep.
It was.
It was deep.
Yeah.
We all listen. Storytelling on a DJ Drama.
That's part 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's 3 parts. Yeah, that was banging right there, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Don Cannon produced that one, I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Wow. Okay, so let's go back and recap our 5 for the people who may have tuned in late or who are just getting here. But like I said, y'all, this was not a easy task at all to narrow it down to 5. But we'll get into our honorable mentions list, and you'll see why it was hard. So go ahead, Walt. Tell the folks your songs again, man, and then I'll go, and then you go, Q.
Okay, so number 5 was "Damn" by the Youngbloods. Number 4 was "Do You Want To" by Escape. Number 3 was "The Thought Process" by Goody Mob. 2 was "Yeah," Usher featuring Ludacris and Lil Jon. And number 1 was "Rosa Parks" by Outkast.
All right, so my 5 was "Da Brat," "Give It To You," the remix. 4, Outkast, Aquemini. 3, Tony Braxton's "You Mean the World to Me." 2, Usher's "You Make Me Wanna," and then number 1 was TLC's "What About Your Friends."
All right, my number 5 was Usher "Think of You" remix, So So Def remix. Number 4 was Jermaine Dupri featuring Jay-Z, "Money Ain't a Thing." Number 3, Da Brat, "Live It Up." Number 2, Babyface featuring Tony Braxton, "Give You My Heart." And number 1, the art of storytelling, Outkast.
Okay. So now, look, JR, I've had to put the comment in. JR said, we need a part 2 of this show. We really could, man. And, and we thought about it, but time was of the essence for this month, and we weren't able to split it up into 2 episodes. We thought about doing the 2 shorter episodes, 1 strictly LaFace and 1 strictly So So Def. And who knows, we may end up doing that later on. But, yeah, that's sort of where we are. We ran out of time, so to speak. We had a lot going on. in this month. All right, so honorable mentions. These are the songs that should have made the list but did not. All right, well, who are your honorable mentions, man? I know you got some bangers on there.
Well, okay, I start with the Lady Summertime classic, Ghost Town DJs, My Boo, So So Def Bass All Stars.
Yeah. Okay.
Another one is Hood Hop by Jaquan. Just one of those songs, just one of those songs. The beat is just This is a Atlanta focused episode, but that beat was so St. Louis.
Yeah.
And the last one was Fresh as I'm Is by Bow Wow. That was the shift from Lil Bow Wow to Bow Wow, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, Q, who's on your honorable mentions list, man?
All right, I'm not going to list them all, but I will say the first one, since it was requested earlier, Donnell Jones, Where You Are, Part 2. I was actually listening to that album. I listened to it last weekend and a little bit today. When I tell you, all you got to do is just let it play.
Yeah.
I mean, the album was solid. As a matter of fact, not only do you let it play, you got a sunroof, slide it back. You got a drop top, drop it, and just go. And so the other ones are TLC, Baby, 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 Crisscross, Tonight's the Night, and Damien Dame, Right Down to It.
Okay. All right. So my list was Tony Braxton's Breathe Again, Goody Miles, Beautiful Skin, Understanding by Escape, My Way by Usher. These three songs were not So So Def or LaFace artists, but just collaborations. Drew Hill's In My Bed, the remix.
Yep.
Yeah. What the Hook Gonna Be by Murphy Lee.
Yeah.
Keep On Keeping On by MC Light featuring Escape. And I didn't forget Donnell Jones, Dre. Donnell Jones, This Love. Yeah. I got to give Donnell Jones his flowers, man. I actually did flowers.
You do.
I did a Flowers on Friday episode on him last year, man. He actually liked the post. So shout out to Donnell Jones.
Yeah, Donnell Jones made some heat.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He made some heat back in the day.
And there are some people out there who prefer his version of Stevie Wonder's what song is it?
Knocks Me Off My Feet.
Knocks Me Off My Feet versus the original. He did his thing, man. He did his thing on that. All right. So Walt, we're about to put you on the hot seat, brother. If you on the show, you got to go on the hot seat. If the questions are difficult, you blame Q.
Q, you're supposed to have my back, man.
Yeah, man. So you got to think quick on your feet. All right, you ready?
All right.
All right. First question, Walt on the hot seat. All-time favorite album from LaFace and why?
Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music.
Okay. You gonna say that?
Yeah. It was just, something that I never heard before. Yeah. On so many levels.
Yeah.
It was just different. I love hip hop before that, but that album confirmed my love for hip hop. No doubt.
What'd you say, Q, on our our Southern hip hop episode? You said it sounded like them boys was picking collard greens up from the earth when they made this album.
They were, they were picking greens fresh out the ground.
All right. So Q, all right. Next question. Next question, Walt. All-time favorite album from So So Def and why?
Ooh. I would say the Funkdafied album.
Okay.
It was just refresh. It was refreshing, we had female rappers before, but I don't know, just lyrically, she just seemed different to me. So yeah, I'd say Funkdafied.
Yeah. And just think, JD didn't even want to sign her, man. He didn't want to sign no female rappers.
Right.
But it was Brat's persistence that made that happen. All right. Last and final hot seat question. Best song produced out of the two labels. Best song produced out of the two labels. You can only pick one.
Man. Best song produced out of the two labels. Okay, I'm biased here. I'm gonna go with Elevators.
Man,
Like, there's nothing you can compare that to.
You can't.
Nothing.
you dropped the mic on that.
Well, for the money, yes, sir. Too for the show. A couple
Golly.
years ago from Headland and DeLow.
Nothing started. Nothing sounded like. Nothing still sounds like Elevators.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
All right. So we were talking about this before the show started. Okay. During the Versus era, there was supposed to have been a Versus between So So Def's Jermaine Dupri and Bad Boys, He Who Shall Not Be Named. Mr. Sean Combs himself.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins in that Versus? Who wins? Be honest.
I'm saying JD.
Yeah.
If we're going strictly producing,
We're going strictly producing now.
JD. Not, any assistance. It's JD.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
What you think, Q? What you think?
damn. I did say initially that it would be Puff because of the catalog, but as Walt said, strictly solo producing, it would be JD.
Yeah. I'm going. So this is how I feel like the competition would have went. It would have been neck and neck for about 10 songs. So you got to do 20 in a verses.
Right.
Once they got past about 10, JD gonna start dropping hits.
Right.
And he would be on there talking his junk too. Like he gonna be talking trash, and then he gonna bring up the fact Dang, JR.
Oh man.
Wow.
Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Yeah, so JD would have been like, matter of fact, I made a song with your artist. I did this song with your artist. Like he had some trash with Biggie.
Yep.
Too. So yeah, man, I think JD would have won. It would have started out close, but JD would have pulled away. Yeah, because let's give props where they are, man. So So Def. If we talk about Crisscross. Hell, you can go back to Silk Times Leather. That's 1990, and we're going to now because he plays a hand. He actually is producing Money Long stuff too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He is.
You talking Janet Jackson, man?
Janet Jackson, bruh.
Like,
and Mariah too.
Yeah, come on, man. Yeah, it'd been over after the first 10 songs.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I know. I initially said Puff, but I think JD did a lot of stuff on his own. So yeah, I gotta consent. It's JD.
Yeah. All right. So, Q, let's tell the people about May's episodes. What we're gonna be talking about in the month of May.
Hold on, I gotta go to my phone.
I got you. It's on the screen, brother.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. we did say we're gonna do this one. So the May episode, we're gonna talk about the sound of Stax Records, Southern Soul jams from back in the day. Wow. I am ready for this episode because
it's right up your alley right here. Yeah.
This is right up my alley.
Yeah.
So I can't wait. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the Stax Records sound. We're gonna get into some songs. We're gonna get into a little bit of history. I don't know if anybody had a chance to check out the Stax Records documentary. I think it came out on HBO Max, but do check that out because there was a lot of things that I didn't know, but I learned from there, and we'll discuss a little bit of it in the show.
Man, you're talking Sam and Dave type music.
Sam and Dave,
heavy hitters.
Booker T and the MGs, Otis, Isaac. Who else? Q? Because this your label right here. Johnny Taylor,
The Emotions.
Did I
say the Intruders? Not the Intruders. Damn it! It's going to come to me.
Yeah.
It's so many great acts came out on Stax. And yeah, I just I'm not gonna get into it now, but
No,
I can
I know,
only
man.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna hit on the Southern Soul jams. We're gonna talk about Stacks and get into the history of that label, and we may even have a Saturday sit down shorts for you guys.
Yep.
We'll figure out with the date and time and all that when that's coming.
Yes.
All right. So, as always, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell your mama, your daddy, your brother too, aunties, uncles, nieces, and nephews, fellow music lovers, those who love knowledge. Tell them to like, share, subscribe, and follow the Saturday Sit Down on YouTube and Instagram. They won't be disappointed. I promise. And as QG says, you don't have to take my word for it. Check it out for yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, spread the word, spread the love. We all about sharing our knowledge and our love for music, man. We try to make it enjoyable for you all. We don't try to be on this throne like we high and mighty and we know everything, because that's certainly not us, man. But just make sure that you guys take the opportunity to hit that like button, hit that share arrow, subscribe, hit the follow button, hit the little bell on there so you get notified when new content is uploaded. I mean, you'll instantly get a notification on your phone that we uploaded a short. We got an episode coming up. So yeah. So do us a favor. If you're watching the show, if you participate in the live chats, man, tell the folks about it. Look, Andre says, tell your mama and your cousin too. Slam them Cadillac doors. Shout out to Outkast.
Yep.
All right, man. So Q, man. I always let you do the gratitude, man. We got to thank our guests first and foremost.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I gotta thank my LB, my front, my main man, my man 100 grand, Wally G, for coming on and joining us this evening and dropping knowledge and just sharing in the love of music. Also, I want to give a shout out to the audience. You know, participation, loved it. And we, hopefully y'all love us, but we love you.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do this without y'all. We doing it for y'all.
Yeah, thank y'all, man. We're gonna have to come up with a name, Q, for the folks that participate in the chat, man. Y'all be having the comments jumping. Y'all be having the comments jumping, man, and full of laughs and good energy and good vibes. So we appreciate y'all, man, and thank y'all for continuing to spread the word, to share the content. We appreciate that, man. Like I said, we just two good brothers who just trying to talk about music, man. That's something we love to do.
Yeah.
So, Walt, again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on this Saturday to indulge us for an hour and a half plus. We had a lot to talk about because we haven't done an episode in a minute. So we appreciate you hanging in there with us, man.
Thank you, brothers. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Anytime.
Yeah. So signing off. Season 2, episode 10, LaFace So So Def. You can catch this episode in its entirety here on YouTube. Be looking out for clips to be posted on our Instagram page as well as shorts on YouTube. I haven't done it yet, but there may be a playlist forthcoming, but they got so much music, man. The playlist probably be 100+ songs. So I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. That's a lot of music, man. But yeah, signing off, man. Signing off again. Special thanks to our guest, Brother Wally G. I am T. Harris at When the Needle Drops.
And I'm QG at Nerdy Lil Bubba.
All right. We appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Again, you can catch the full episode here on YouTube at any time by searching for @The Saturday Sit Down. Y'all have a blessed evening.
You too.